Hello, 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 and welcome back to another NFL draft grades video. Let me tell you something, man. I don't know what it is. I, it takes a lot of work, right? I actually prepared ahead of time. Like I made the format of all these videos on Google Slides ahead of time, so I just had to fill the information in. It still takes a good amount of time to put these videos together and everything, but not only am I enjoying putting together 200 something play. And by the way, guys, I don't just when I put down a player for a team and their pick, I don't just like put it there and like BS. I have to actually know like the player. I have to know the fit. I had to know the team's needs and how that player will they get playing time? Will they not? Will they make the team? Will they not? So I have to actually do my research on 250 plus draft picks. And on top of that, while I'm putting all this together, I just made a damn list ranking every single wide receiver room in the NFL. I had about five receivers per team, sometimes more. So that's 160 plus players right there that I just ranked and organized right there. So I am a football freak, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So with that spiel out of the way, let's get into the NFC East draft grades here. Boy, I'm excited. So one of the most impactful, talked about teams of the draft cycle, the New York Giants. Well, obviously, last season was a disaster. The quarterback situation just bottom fell out. They cut Daniel Jones. They had who know I don't even remember who they had starting most of the year. They were terrible. Offense was a joke. Um, Brian Dable now, Joe Schoen, I think is the GM, coaching for their jobs. You could say this next upcoming season they brought in Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and honestly, they made some good moves in the offseason. They brought in some good DBs, Paulson Adebo, Javon Holland. I think their defense is going to be really, really good. I find it hard to believe the Giants won't be a top six, top seven defense. With that being said, they just have to be serviceable on offense, right? They made some moves. I like their running back tandem now. They don't have a terrible wide receiver room. I think Russell Wilson will kind of make it work with what they got. So I think the Giants will win 7 or 8 games. I think Brian Dable will keep his job, and I think that'll play a big part in what they did in this draft. So let's get right into it. First of all, I should say, number 3 overall, you draft Abdul Carter, the generational edge rusher out of Penn State. Now, the reason I give this pick an A+ is because in the Giants' mind, I don't know this for a fact. I would assume that they had Abdul Carter as their number 1 overall player in the entire class. A lot of people did. It was about 50-50. You either had Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, they're 1A, 1B. So they feel like, right, at number 3, they got the best player in the draft. That's a great way to feel. And the Jaguars had to move up to get Hunter. They stuck and pick, got Abdul Carter. That's the reason I gave that an A+ to get potentially the best player in the draft by sticking and picking at number 3, you feel really damn good about that. It's like how the Texans felt a year or two ago when they drafted Will Anderson at number 3 overall. Similar feeling. So gave that an A+. Do I think he'll start day one? Yes. I mean, the D line is just stacked, right? Do you play him on the edge? Who do you have on the other edge? I mean, I would say Abdul Carter, lock him in. I want him out there damn near every snap. If he gets tired, well, then you can rotate in Thibodeaux, for example. But it's like you have a 3-man group of edge rushers between Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeaux. Obviously, somebody's probably not going to be able to play every snap, but man, can you imagine the few sets of plays where all 3 of those guys see the field at the same time? I'll tell you what, I don't want to throw. I do not want to throw against that 3-man lineup. So yeah, Abdul Carter A+. Number 25, they make a move to get sorry. They make a move to get back into the first round. Did not trade a first round pick, by the way, which is very interesting to me. I believe it was like an extra third or two that they traded to get back into this first round. They draft Jackson Dart, right? At number 25 overall. I'm extremely conflicted about this pick. I mean, here's the problem. Jackson Dart is not a top 50 player on my board. So I think it's a massive reach to trade back into the first round and draft him at number 25 overall. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I don't, I think he's talented, right? I think he has a good arm. I think he's very mobile, way more mobile than people give him credit for. But the problem with that is that he takes a ton of unnecessary hits. He's going to have to change his play style going into the NFL, I think. And also the offense he ran at college, right? The Ole Miss offense, I think it's widely agreed upon. It is not close to an NFL style offense, right? But the good news with that is he's going to have an entire year. He's not going to play this. I mean, here's the thing, right? If the Giants are terrible and if they're terrible enough to where they're going to want to bench Russell Wilson, that means Brian Daboll's fired, right? He's going to get fired midseason if they're bad enough to bench Russell Wilson. Um, I would make the case that Jackson Dart's QB3, put him behind Jameis. I mean, and just let him take the entire because this is the fucked up part, right? So if he spends this entire year learning Brian Daboll's system and then they fire Brian Daboll, then Jackson Dart is pretty much back to square one, right? He's gonna whoever coach they bring in, he's gonna have to learn a whole new system. So it's really tough with Jackson Dart, right? It's pretty much his success is pretty much hinging on Brian Daboll and the Giants winning 7 or 8 games and him keeping his job this year. So it's very interesting to see that. So that's the problem for me. I just don't love the pick, right? Jackson Dart is not going to play this year. I would have really liked it. Well, you didn't have to trade back up at all, but if you did, I mean, what were some of the receivers available here at number 25? I think Luther Burden was available. The Giants don't have a really good wide receiver room. I mean, Luther Burden right here would have made a major difference in that. It's I understand, but here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. If things don't work out next season, or if they do work out next season, draft a quarterback next year, or make a free agent acquisition, or it's just it's really tough for me. All the all the factors that have to go right for Jackson Dart to be a successful quarterback for the Giants, I feel like it's really a narrow opportunity. Like out of all the paths lined up, right? The ones where Jackson Dart's a successful quarterback for the Giants, I don't feel like there's many of those paths, right? So I give it a C plus just because I like the aggressiveness. Really, I really just would have preferred Shedeur here. That's the number one thing. Man, I don't know. But I understand if the reports were true about what Shedeur did or I guess didn't do during their interview, almost like he was bombing, like he didn't want to go to the Giants, then of course you can't draft him based off that. But I don't love Jackson Dart. And I really don't love Jackson Dart in the first round. So for all those reasons, I think it was their worst pick of the draft. Now, number 65 overall, first pick of the third round, they draft Darius Alexander, the run stuffing defensive tackle out of Toledo. Now, I've had this call for like a week now. It is kind of shocking to me that they would not address wide receiver here with this pick, right? Or the offensive line at all. Let's not forget that the Giants have consistently been a terrible offensive line for years now, and that's not. I mean, they didn't really do anything to address that in this draft, at least. So Darius Alexander, my thought process is after they draft Abdul Carter, well, you got Abdul, you got Brian Burns, you got Kayvon Thibodeaux, you got Dexter Lawrence. You have a pretty loaded defensive line. So I was not at all expecting them to get a guy like Darius Alexander. Now, with that being said, a lot of people think Darius Alexander is a top 50, top 40 player. I did not have him in my top 50, so I don't think it's that much of a steal. I think it's really good value, great value, even you could say. But, it's kind of shocking, but you're strengthening a strength, right? I could see fronts. I could definitely see fronts where you have Alexander, Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeaux, and Brian Burns. That is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying to even consider. Okay, so I see the reason why you would pick up a guy like Darius Alexander, but now I just think you're making it that much harder on your offense going forward. Now, speaking of the offense, number 105, they get their hands on Cam Skattebo. He was in my top 40. My top 40 players in this class. I understand why he slid a little bit, but then I see guys like, no disrespect, I see guys like RJ Harvey getting drafted in the second round to the Broncos. I don't get that. No disrespect. RJ Harvey was a great college back, but I don't really see him on the same level as a guy like Cam Skattebo, even with all the physical limitations. Well, I mean, Cam's a lot bigger than RJ Harvey for one, but obviously RJ's a lot faster. But I think Cam has so much better receiving ability. He can do so much more for you. Honestly, this reminds me a lot. Heavy shades this pick of Bucky Irving last year. Very similar, right? Because Buccaneers had Rachaad White, an established running back already. Not great, but established. Giants had Tyrone Tracy, really good rookie season. All right. Cam Skattebo, Bucky Irving, both fourth-round picks. Both guys who can catch and run the ball very effectively. Different type of backs. Cam Skattebo way more physical, not as much of an athlete, right? But I could see both Cam Skattebo, Bucky Irving coming in, winning the starting job over the respective established running backs out of the fourth round and being some real guys to watch out for as rookies. I don't think Cam Skattebo will have, Bucky Irving 1,500 yards from scrimmage and be the best rookie running back in the league. But I really like this pick by the Giants, right? You cannot go into next season with, Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary, especially if you don't address wide receiver like the Giants refuse to do. So now at least you got two really young, exciting running backs that I'm excited to see, right? You just make it that much easier on the quarterback and the struggling pass game and offensive line for that matter. So I like that pick a lot. I gave that an A. I think it was their steal of the draft. I'm almost talking myself into an A plus, but I'll leave it as an A. Next up, we have Marcus Mbow, uh, offensive guard out of Purdue. I gave this an A as well. Like I said, I think addressing the offensive line was very important here, especially guard and right tackle for that matter. But guard here, I saw a third round grade on this guy, a third round grade on Marcus Mbow. So to get him in the 150s, amazing value, addresses a position of need. And by the end of the season, I mean, all he has to do to start is breed out Greg Van Roten. I think is his name. So that's not going to be hard, all due respect. But to get a guy, a potential starter in the fifth round, year one starter in the fifth round, that's some amazing drafting. And if you've noticed here, the Giants have got 4 out of 5 A minus or better grades, okay, in their first 5 picks. That's some amazing drafting. And my point that I'm trying to make here is if you like the Jackson Dart pick, there's a strong case to be made. The Giants had one of, if not the best drafts in the entire NFL. And they didn't stop there. 219, they drafted Thomas Fidone. Yeah, it's not a wide receiver, but you did get a pass catcher. He had a fifth round grade on him. So to get him in the seventh, that's really, really good value. I gave that a B plus because it's a potential pass catcher. I don't think he'll play a whole lot. With they got guys like a Bellinger and a Theo Johnson, so he might be tight end 3. But I still like the value getting a fifth round grade in the seventh. And then Kobe Black, a cornerback out of Oklahoma State. I don't think he'll make the roster, so I did not decide to grade that pick. Looking at the draft overall, I'm really shocked that they're running into next season without any change at wide receiver. Maybe they think, I hope that they're going to finally use Jalen Hyatt, right? An amazing deep threat. They just didn't have the capabilities to throw the ball deep last year. Maybe they'll use or unlock some sort of thing with him. They don't have a great room of tight ends. I think their pass game is really going to struggle next season. But here's what it is. And like I said earlier, I give this is the interesting part. I did not like the Jackson Dart pick, and I still gave him an A minus. So if you like the Jackson Dart, I didn't even say love. If you like the Jackson Dart pick, if you give that a B or a B plus, we're talking about like an A grade for the Giants. That's a damn good draft. Damn good draft. So yeah, Giants fans should be extremely happy here with how they performed this whole offseason, really. I mean, talk about adding 2 studs in your secondary. And now this draft right here, Giants fans should be very happy. Moving on. Cowboys next. So take a look at what they did here. Well, talking about last season, pretty disappointing, right? Offense was not where you wanted it to be. They fired Mike McCarthy as a result. They missed the playoffs, didn't they? That was the first year they missed the playoffs under Mike McCarthy, if I'm not mistaken. Did that get hurt? I'm not sure. I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to the Cowboys. In my opinion, they were just kind of irrelevant. They started off poor and did not get much better. I mean, the offensive line, not so good. And that's kind of going to determine how they went with their first overall pick, or first round pick, I should say. Tyler Booker out of Alabama. I'll put it this way. Big reach at number 12 overall. He was not in my top, he was not in my top 40. I don't think he was. He wasn't even in some people's top 50. But instant Zach Martin replacement. All right, and here's a guy. I feel like Tyler Booker is a guy who could be the what's the word I want to use here? The motivator of the entire offensive line. He seems like a high energy guy who's going to uplift and make those around him better with his mentality. So he has the intangibles that make him better than just his talent alone. So I'm going to give this pick a B plus. At first, I wasn't that fond of it. I was thinking like a C plus or a B minus. But the more I think about it, the Cowboys need to fix this offensive line. The Cowboys' entire offensive line is full of guys on rookie contracts. Their entire offensive line: Tyler Guyton, Tyler Booker, BB, who's the other guy? Terrence Steele, and the other guard. I'm forgetting his name right now, but their entire offensive line is rookie contract guys. So Tyler Booker, it would not shock me at all if Tyler Booker is the Cowboys' best offensive lineman as a rookie. So if that's the case, we're looking at a really good pick right here. Next up, Number 44, they sit and pick at 44 and somehow get their hands on Donovan Ezraku. A lot of people were really high on this kid, and for good reason. I mean, he was dominant last year at the ACC level. Great value on the pick, potential star. I mean, you talk about a guy, pair him on the opposite side of Micah Parsons, he could wreck some havoc on that D line. And listen, some people had him in their top 20. It's just obvious there were too many defensive linemen in this class. Some really good ones are going to fall to the second round. Cowboys fans, you should be ecstatic that you got your hands on this guy at 44. I think it was their best pick of the draft. I gave that an A grade right there. Next up, Shavon Revel. How on earth? I understand he's coming off of a major injury, and I understand he didn't play against some great competition, but brother, Shavon Revel's physical traits. Man, Trey Amos, Shavon Revel, Benjamin Morrison, all these corners that I was in love with, they all fell. But to get him at 76, that's an A, man. That's their steal of the draft. Back to back, amazing picks by the Cowboys defense. It's a steal. And listen, their health issues. I think Deron Bland and Travion Diggs, like each of them have missed like an entire season, back to back season. So it's like they have major health concerns in their cornerback room already. They draft a guy coming off a torn ACL. So maybe not what you want to see there. But I mean, man, you think of a world where all three of those guys are healthy. Watch out, man. That's scary. That really is scary. Great pick there by the Cowboys. Number 149, they take Jaden Blue, keep him in state, the running back out of Texas. Great speed with this guy, great receiving threat. You saw what he did, I believe it was against Ohio State in the championship game. I believe he caught multiple touchdowns against Ohio State in the playoffs, I should say. So, yeah, I like this pick a lot, right? Their running back room. Here's the problem. The Cowboys' skill positions. Take away CeeDee Lamb, it's the worst in football. I mean, I'm including running back and receiving rooms together, like combine those guys. They're rolling into next season with Jaden Blue, Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders. They're rolling into next season with guys that their own team. I really, it baffles me as to why the Cowboys did not bring back Rico Dowdle. I mean, they let the Panthers sign Rico Dowdle for about as much money as they signed Miles Sanders. They pretty much traded Rico Dowdle to the Panthers for Miles Sanders. That's a massive mistake, in my opinion. Say whatever you want. You can say Rico Dowdle, he was the worst running back in football last year, starting running back. The man had like 1,300 yards behind a bad offensive line. I mean, it is baffling to me that the Cowboys didn't even want to bring him back. I mean, so yeah, but back to Jaden Blue. It's a good pick. I could absolutely seeing this guy starting off as their third down back and then just taking over the job entirely from a guy like Javonte Williams. So I like the pick a lot. Gave that a B plus. Next up, Shamar James, linebacker out of Florida here. It's not a pick that I think needed to be made. Certainly, linebacker was not a position of need. And on top of that, you're leaving wide receiver wide open here. I mean, it's just, I didn't like the pick. So I gave it a C. Thought it was their worst pick of the draft. Next up, a Johnny offensive tackle out of Oregon. Good tackle from Oregon. This is actually really good value here. I saw him ranked by some people fourth, fifth round. So to get him here in the 200s, it's just really good value. And like I mentioned earlier, if your entire offensive line is on rookie contracts, it won't be that hard for a Johnny Cornelius to see some action, right? So not to mention just depth in case of an injury. I like this pick by the Cowboys. Give that a B in the 200s there. 217, take a defensive tackle out of UCLA, Jay Toia. Normally, I wouldn't be too fond of a pick like this, but like I said about the last pick, good value. The Cowboys here, their whole thing, right? Ezraku, Shavon Revel, last two picks, just drafting guys that are falling. And Jay Toia, he could just be their DT3, or he could beat out a guy like Mazi Smith. What a story that would be, right? Seventh round pick out of UCLA beating out the first round pick for Michigan here. I just think Mazi Smith's so bad. I wouldn't be shocked if this guy ends up taking his job by the end of the year. So gave that a B as well. Phil Mafah here. I don't love this pick, right? Don't get me wrong. You address the running back position. I think Phil Mafah is a guy who would have went undrafted. You could have picked him off of waivers and you pass on guys like Ricky White, for example. Did they pass on a guy like Ricky White? I think they did. There's certain guys, right, where it's like at least that you cannot walk into next season with Jonathan Mingo as your wide receiver. You can't do it. I'm sorry, you cannot do it. At least give a guy like Ricky White a shot. Let me verify that they passed on him. Sorry, I gotta go to the seventh round. Okay, never mind. It was one pick before they drafted Phil Maffa. Let me apologize. But I mean, I'm going to criticize him for it anyways. It's like draft some receiver, man. Pick up somebody to compete with Jonathan Mingo. It can't be that hard. So I'm going to give it a B minus anyways. Phil Maffa, not a bad player, but I mean, you already got, like I said, Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams, Jaden Blue. I don't think Phil Maffa will see a whole lot of action. He might beat out Miles Sanders though for RB3. Keep an eye on that. Next up, Tommy King Basotti. What a name right there. Defensive tackle out of Maryland. I do not see the point whatsoever in doubling up on seventh round defensive tackles. I don't think he'll make the roster, so I did not grade that pick. So take a look here overall for the Cowboys. Really, really good picks. I mean, their first three I thought were extremely solid. Their first four, even, I think solid. I think they also got some good value in the later rounds with guys like Cornelius and the defensive tackle out of UCLA. Their biggest problem for me, like if with the Shamar James pick, for example, if they would have spent, let me find a receiver here. If they would have spent the Shamar James pick, let me find a name for y'all. If they would have got their hand, Torrey Horton. Torrey Horton went like 10 picks after Shamar James. Switch those two picks. I'm giving that like an A, probably. And the Cowboys draft grade goes from a B plus like an A minus. That what a change that could have meant here. And I think he beats out Jonathan Mingo, no questions to ask. So yeah, that's really the biggest issue for me here with the Cowboys, and a shocking amount of really good defensive picks on their end. I mean, yeah, Cowboys, good, not great, and a very, very easy way that it could have been great. Moving on, Commanders here. Commanders had only 5 picks, right? But they had an amazing season last year, right? Shocking, most shocking team in the league. They were just on fire with Jaden Daniels, right? And I think they've spent a lot of money this offseason on both lines of scrimmage. Obviously, made that big move for Laramie Tunsil. Got guys like Deebo Samuel in there, so they are committed, and I respect it. They understand the unique advantage they have on having a young quarterback making next to no money. So they understand they got to spend a lot of money, and I respect that. So let's talk about the final part of their offseason, how they finished their draft. So first 2 picks I love. And at first, I didn't love the Josh Connolly pick because I thought you were passing on guys like Trey Amos. But they got Trey Amos anyways at the end of the second round. So it makes the Josh Connolly pick that much better. Man, I don't know how the Commanders pulled this off with their first 2 picks. Let's talk about Josh Connolly, right? So you bring in Laramie Tunsil to play left tackle, right? Great move. I like that move a lot. Now, you got a hole. Well, I wouldn't say you got a hole. You got the right tackle position. I believe you had guys like Brandon Coleman playing right tackle last year, but I believe Sam Cosmi got hurt last year. So you may want to kick a guy like Brandon Coleman to right guard and let this rookie Josh Connerly switch from left tackle to right tackle. And you just got your 2 tackles set right there. I wouldn't mind that at all. Whether Josh Connerly starts at right tackle or right guard, I'm going to salute the decision to draft a guy to protect Jaden Daniels. Maybe you could make the argument Josh Simmons is better than Josh Connerly, but I mean, they drafted a healthier guy. I'm not going to fault them for that. I gave that an A. There's some other really good players available, but man, Josh Connolly at 29, I can't fault them for that whatsoever. Trey Amos, best pick and their steal of the draft. It's just, I believe he ended up in my top 30 players just because there's no holes in this game. He ran like a 4.43, meets all the size requirements, great tape, physical cornerback. Like, it's just, where's the flaw? There is no flaw with Trey Amos. I'm shocked he fell all the way to number 61. All these corners, man. Trey Amos, Benjamin Morrison, Javon Revel, Will Johnson, all the corners just fell besides fucking Jahdae Barron. I don't know why. But yeah, so get him at 61. That's a shocker to me. I mean, I think he's a day one starter. I think he beats out what's his name? Igbenogany. I think he's a starting boundary corner for you out next to Marshawn Lattimore. So that's an A plus, man. No, I mean just a stunning pick, one of the best picks in the draft, in my opinion. If they would have drafted him at 29, I would have given them an A. To get him at 61, amazing. If there's an A plus plus, he gets that pick for me. Next up, Jalen Lane. By the way, what a massive jump here from the end of the second round to 128 here. Jalen Lane, wide receiver out of Virginia Tech. I didn't love this. I like the player, right? I like the player. I think it's good value, but I do not like the fit at all, right? You drafted Luke McCaffrey last year. Now, maybe you don't like how Luke McCaffrey is progressing or anything like that, but I just did not see the need or the reason to be drafting a receiver here when you have some real holes in your front seven. And you're saying, I don't love their defense, right? I think their cornerback room now is probably their strongest group on the team, or the defense, I should say. I don't like their front seven or their safety group. And you spend number 128 on a receiver right here. I don't love it. So I gave it a B because I like the player. I think he might be your wide receiver 3 or 4, depending on injuries, but I don't like the decision making to abandon the defense like that. Next up, Kane Madrano, linebacker out of UCLA. I didn't love the value. I thought it was fine. Like I said, I feel like edge rusher or defensive tackle even was a bigger need, if you will. Even safety as well. It's just linebacker. You got Bobby Wagner, right? It's just like I don't know. It's tough to ask for them to draft valuable players here in the 200s, right? So B minus, it's not a bad pick at all. It's just they didn't make many bad picks. So I had to give it the red font right there. And then Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. Some Commanders fans were asking for a running back, but I mean, I think they're fine, honestly. Between Brian Robinson and Austin Ekeler, he had a real good year last year, so I didn't think they needed to draft a running back. But yeah, I don't even think Merritt will make the team, honestly, because they got what's his name, Jeremy McNichols back there. So Merritt is RB4 in my opinion. So first two picks were absolutely incredible. They did not have the draft capital to do much after that, unfortunately. No help for the front seven, kind of shocking to me, and still a weak group of safeties in their back end. So unfortunately, I don't think the Commanders' defense is going to be all that improved next season. I think it'll be slightly improved, but I feel like so it's kind of going to be more of the same. I think the offense is still going to be great, defense lagging behind. So I feel like the Commanders' issues are going to be pretty much identical to last season, in my opinion, at least. And then finally, Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, what a loaded roster. I mean, trying to find holes in their roster. Going into the draft, right? The only holes I could even think of would be replacing Becton at guard. They didn't even decide to address that. I don't think, at least. And what else? Maybe a number 3 receiver, but you still got Jahan Dotson, who had some really good plays in the Super Bowl. I thought maybe you could look to get your tight end of the future, but no, they went different directions, and I can't blame them for it. Let's get into it. Here's the thing, right? The thing about why the Eagles have been so good at drafting these last few years is they simply just stick, except for Jalen Carter when they trade up to get the best talent in an entire draft. That was generational move by right there. But what they usually do is just sit back and draft the best available player. And in this case, in their opinion, it was Jahad Campbell, according to everybody, at least like a top 21, top 22 player in the entire draft. I think he was in my top 22 or 23. And, they look at Nakobe Dean's injury. Unfortunately, they feel like they have a hole at linebacker. Even if Dean comes back healthy, then Jahad Campbell, here's a guy who has versatility, kind of like Jalen Walker, you can play fronts with Jahad Campbell, Dean, and Zach Bond all on the field at the same time because you can line Jahad Campbell up on the edge. He has those types of capabilities in his arsenal. So he's a versatile guy, amazing talent. You can just coach him up to be an all-pro linebacker. I mean, he has that type of physical ability. So I love the pick, gave that an A. Thought it was their best pick of the draft overall. I mean, it's just sitting and picking and drafting the guy who has top 20 talent. I mean, that's what they're best at, right? So typical Eagles pick right there. Next up, though, Andrew Mukuba at safety. Here's the thing. Don't get me wrong. I understand the thought process, right? You lose CJ Gardner-Johnson, right? You trade him away. Kind of just give him away. I don't really know why. But you lose him. But here's the thing, right? You still got the guy, the Sidney Brown guy. You drafted him out of Illinois a couple years ago. Are you not confident in him? That's kind of confusing to me. You draft Andrew Mukuba to be your number 3 safety, So I don't think he wins the job over a guy like Sidney Brown who's been there, done that. So and if you did draft a safety, you had Ryan Watts, who's just better than Mukuba in my opinion. No matter who you ask. So I didn't love the pick, right? I think it'll work out because it's the Eagles. It gets to the point where you just can't doubt a team when they're drafting. So I gave that a B minus. I didn't love the pick. Number 111, you got Ty. And by the way, with the Mukuba pick, man, passed on some really, really good pass rushes, right? That's shocking to me that they would pass on some of these defensive linemen that were available when they drafted Makuba, like Landon Jackson, Prince Umanmi Allen. That was shocking to me. But, anyways, we move on. Ty Robinson, number 111, defensive lineman out of Nebraska, can play both inside and outside. Athletic freak, right? He's a guy who tested really well, really is more of a D end just athletically, but also has that size and that nastiness to kick inside. So he's a good versatile player. But you pass on Jack Sawyer here. Interesting to me. Like you could have had some really good like let's just say hypothetically. You draft a Prince Umanmi Allen at 64, and then you make a slight trade up to what 95 to draft Ryan Watts, the safety. I'm not a GM, but I feel like that's much better than what they actually decided to do here at 64 and 111. That's just my opinion. Number 145, they draft Mac Williams, a guy out of UCF. Honestly, not rated that highly. It's a bit of a reach here. If you look at their cornerback room right now, I don't think this guy beats out Kelee Ringo. I think, you know, I just the value wasn't that high on him. They clearly like his traits, what he can do, but I gave it a B minus. I think it was a reach. I didn't like the player in the fourth round. So that's just my opinion. Might be the fifth round actually here, 145. But I'm moving on. Smael Mondon at 161. They could not. You knew they had to draft a Georgia. They had to draft a Georgia player somewhere, and it just so happens that they drafted Georgia linebacker. Man, what a linebacker room that they're putting together. Poor Smael Mondon. He comes to the NFL. He's competing for playing time with All-Pro Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, his former teammate, and now Jihad Campbell. What a tough ask for Smael Mondon. I'll tell you what, he might be the best line LB4 in the league when he comes in there. It's a good pick. I gave it a B just because of how stacked their linebacker room is. Drew Kendall, center out of Boston College. Now, they just paid Cam Jurgens, but there's nothing wrong with depth. I think Drew Kendall, serviceable player in case of an injury. I think he could step in. I think it's good value to get a backup offensive lineman like that in the sixth round. So I gave that a B right there. 181. Here's the thing. This is the first time we've really seen this. We're going to get into this multiple times here while I'm doing all these draft grade videos or these draft grades. I absolutely hate drafting a backup quarterback, like drafting a guy who is not going to play for you. Like, because the idea of being a team with an established quarterback trying to win a Super Bowl and your backup guy, the guy you have in an emergency situation, is a rookie trying to learn the system and a playbook. Why would you not just go out, get a veteran, pay him no money because obviously they would want to play for a Super Bowl contender and have him be there in case of an emergency? It pains me to no end to waste a sixth round pick on a backup quarterback. It is aggravating to me. And on top of that, you drafted Tanner McKee in the sixth round in 2023. So if he can't learn this, if Tanner McKee cannot become a backup quarterback in 2 years, please go ahead and cut his ass. And then you got the Dorian Thompson-Robinson kid from the Browns. Is he not good enough? I hate this. I hate it. I give it a D. I don't mind Kyle McCord as a player. I think him going in the sixth round to a team that needs a quarterback would not make me mad, like a team like the Saints. But the Eagles, I hate it. I absolutely cannot stand it. So I give this a D. Terrible, terrible. Moving on. Myles Hinton, offensive tackle out of Michigan, big physical guy. I think he's like 6'7". This is interesting here. So I didn't love that pick, right? I gave that a B minus. I didn't, just whatever to me. But then you get by the way, Cam Williams at one point was being talked about as a first round pick, just because of his physical attributes and the traits, the God given size, right? That he has been blessed with, right? He is an extremely raw prospect, but you put a guy like Cam Williams into the Eagles offensive line system. That just seems like a future All-Pro in the making, does it not? Does that not seem like the future Lane Johnson replacement in a year or two? I would be shocked if it isn't. But here's the interesting thing, right? Why would you draft Myles Hinton 16 spots ahead of him? Like that's kind of just shocking. Like, why would you not just draft Cam Williams at 191 and call it a day? I think they're still it's an amazing pick to get him at 207, but it's like, clearly they think, because at 191 they had both of these guys on the board, and they drafted Myles Hinton, assuming they wouldn't be able to draft Cam Williams. So do they really think Miles Hinton is better than Cam? Like that's kind of shocking to me. But they get their hands on both of them, so that's crazy to me. And next up, they get Antoine Powell Ryland, edge rusher out of Virginia Tech. Kind of shocking they waited this long to get a pure edge rusher, but they keep him relatively close. Virginia Tech to Philly, not that far away. So I give that a B. Pretty good value to get at number 209. So a lot of picks, 10 picks, I think, for the Eagles, right? So I'm really shocked. No wide receivers, no tight ends. I guess they're really just fine with their skill position players. I mean, no running backs either. Like they really just want a running back with the exact same guys, and I can't blame them. I mean, they won a Super Bowl. I mean, who am I to criticize their personnel decisions? Only thing I really would mention here is that they passed on some really good defensive linemen here, like some really good defensive linemen, and the Makuba pick also kind of a shocker with their second round pick. So yeah, overall grades out to a 5.4. Uh, you know, not too bad. And here's the thing: when you got a Super Bowl roster, there's not many ways to improve that. Right? Let's just take a look. Right? I think Jahad Campbell, he'll be a guy who sees a lot of action early on. I think Makuba, he'll be your number three safety. He'll play a solid amount of snaps. Right? So two guys on defense that'll play a good amount. Um, that's pretty much like those are the only like let's say 300 snaps, right? 300 snaps. How many of these guys play 300 snaps next year? It's just Campbell and Makuba, in my opinion. Like that's it. Like even with injury, I don't think Ty Robinson gets there. Obviously I don't love Mac Williams. Drew Kendall, unless Cam Jurgen gets hurt, I don't see that. Smile Monday, I don't think so. Like it's gonna be hard for any of these guys besides their top two picks to get any sort of meaningful action. So I gave it a B, right? Couple of developmental guys, Cam Williams, Smile London, guys like that. So, yeah, not a bad draft, but rest of the division was really, really good action. So, shocking set of outcomes here. The Eagles, who have been known for their outstanding drafts, and they made some good picks. They made two really good picks, in my opinion. Everything else, though, kind of average. So that's kind of shocking to me. Eagles with the worst draft in their division. Giants, obviously, really, really good. Commanders with the 6 point was Commanders. It's kind of weird because I thought the Cowboys and Commanders both had two really, really good picks. The Cowboys had more. I don't know. That's kind of a toss up, honestly. But the Commanders I only graded for their picks, right? So it's kind of like quality over quantity there, if you will. I don't know. I'll leave it as it is. Both teams had good drafts. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. I will be back with my NFC West draft grades tomorrow. So you know, be on the lookout. Be on the lookout for that. So I will see y'all next time. Peace.